Reverse sweep coming up.
Big win for the Camelot Kings here, Dan. The Valkyries have done it not since week 2. It is the D aside for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink.
But the rest of the Solar Scarabs follow up, down go the Titans, and Labra's got the first. What a 1-2 punch from the Bolts.
The damage comes from the Leviathans until Zapman puts them down with the snipe.
Defend their Titan, and the Tartarus Titan send us on to a game 3.
The Jade Dragons have come to play. 5 kills in 7 minutes.
Day of week 1 of phase number 3 here in the SMITE Pro League, powered by our title sponsor here for the SPL of Alienware. If you haven't already, you can go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get your hands on some discount codes, some coupons, and take a look at all of the sweet gear that Alienware is providing, not just to us here in the studio, but also to the pro players back at their home setups. The Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop, the 25-inch 240Hz gaming monitor, all of that could be yours as well by going over to smitegame.com/Alienware. Thank you, Alienware, for sponsoring the SPL here in Season 8. My name is J-Mac, and joining me on the desk for our first set of the day with the Atlantis Leviathans and the Valhalla Valkyries is going to be Mifflin.
Hey, I'm Mifflin, and I'm going to be joining J-Mac here on the desk today for the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Valhalla Valkyries.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the set, Mifflin. It's going to be a fun one here with the Atlantis Leviathans. They got a big win over their opposition to the Camelot Kings yesterday. Valhalla Valkyries struggled a little bit against the Dragons, but we did get to see a nice little bit of fight in them in their previous matchup. If you missed that action, let's look at the schedule to see what went down for it. It was a Jade Dragons 2-0 over the Valkyries as our first match of the week. The Olympus Bolts 2-1 over the Oni Warriors. Camelot Kings fell to the Leviathans 2-0, and the Oni Warriors fell to the Titans 2-0. And now we're in day number 3, the final day of our first week, opening up with Leviathans Valkyries, and then we'll have our Tartarus Titans Solar Scarabs in studio match immediately following afterwards.
Man, I'm excited for both these sets here today. Unfortunately for the Valhalla Valkyries, they've got a rough doubleheader to start off phase 3, and I think it's going to get a little worse before it gets better.
It's going to be a tough matchup for them indeed, going up against 2 previous top 4 teams in their first matchups going into phase number 3 is a bit of a rough start. We did get to see a nice little bit of fight back from them in that Dragons matchup. They were able to keep it even for that first half of the pace, and that's kind of been the name of the Valhalla Valkyries recently, has been early fight back more than anything. It's been that late game that's been a bit of a struggle for them. Maybe they can find some success here against the Atlantis Leviathans.
Yeah, it just feels like sometimes when the Valhalla Valkyries pulls a lead, they just don't necessarily know exactly what they want to do with that lead. So the group up on the Primal, take some inopportune fights, to speak politically here, and it doesn't really look too good after that for them. If they can clean up that late game phase, I feel like this team is really going to be a threat.
And one thing we talk a lot about with these two teams is a lot of the front line, but the front line aren't the only ones doing the work out here. The back line's got to be the one to get them some kills. And for the Leviathans, Zapman, the most recent addition to the roster, he's fit in very nicely with this team. It kind of feels like a bit of old school for him. He's able to just sit back and really free cast in so many of these fights.
Yeah, man, you could just tell now that once Zapman joined the Leviathans, his mood has improved significantly. If you watch his stream or if you've seen him in the interviews, he just seems like a much happier individual. It seems like he's fitting in well with the squad. They've been having great performances. Zapman in particular has been looking incredibly strong both mechanically, and I'm sure the Leviathans are very happy to have him as a veteran player for this squad, as they are a majority of newer people to the scene here. Zapman brings a little bit of that veteran leadership as well as in-game and out-of-game leadership. So he's just got to be a great facet for this team.
And one of the things that a lot of his teammates do brag about is the fact that he has some of that late-game shot calling that they were missing out on a little bit previously with their team not having a full-on veteran, somebody who hasn't really been up into those further stages of SMITE play. You know, this is a team that is rather new to the SPL as far as players. They've only been here for a couple of years, but you could have fooled me with the performance and the turnaround that they've had here in Season 8.
Yeah, I mean, the Leviathans are just monsters on the battlegrounds, man. You got to keep your eyes on them.
It's going to be a big one for them. We've got Zapman, who's going to be joining us for a pre-game interview to kind of talk with him a little bit about how he thinks things are going with the Leviathans and kind of how he feels everything is standing out here. Phase 3 is a big one for him because Mifflin, this is going to be going for Worlds. Like this is the most important phase of the season. Phase 1 and 2, that's getting you guys prepped up. Now you're in phase 3, and then this is the world's run.
Yeah, world's implications, seeding, standings. If you want to buy around, you got to do well here in phase 3. And I'd argue that the Atlantis Leviathans have got their eyes peeled for it, right? They cannot be denied multiple times. Worth noting that they did make it to the finals of playoffs, but unfortunately, we're not able to close it out. I'm sure they're looking to rectify that here.
Let's talk to Zapman a little bit with this pregame interview, kind of get his thoughts moving in towards the latter half of this season, kind of looking in towards phase 3. Zapman, first off, good to have you here. Welcome to the interview. Welcome to your second matchup. How you guys feeling about your big win over the Camelot Kings?
We're feeling good, man. I think we split with them last phase 1-1, so we knew they were tough competition, and it felt good to get the 2-0.
And going up against your match today, the Valhalla Valkyries, how you kind of feeling about your matchup with Emilito and going up against Raffer as well in that duo lane?
It's always an honor to play against Emilito and Raffer, as they won Worlds twice, and I have the utmost respect for those two. Obviously, it's unfortunate about their situation with ping and everything. You can tell they play the map well, but you can also tell they struggle with the ping issues. So I'm just looking forward to a clean match today.
Hopefully it will be a good matchup for you guys. With one more week left on the bonus patch, and then we'll be looking towards the 8.9, is there anything you're looking forward to with the next patch, maybe from your role?
I'm not looking forward to anything on the next patch because junglers are OP. And
Let's go.
I'm looking forward to playing a lot of Jing Wei next patch. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I got my Twitter fingers ready for that patch drop.
Well, good luck in your game today, Zapman. Hope you can get a good match out there.
Thank you.
Well, maybe not looking forward too much to when the junglers come back through, but for the junglers of his team at least, Panatom's been putting out some big work for him, able to help keep a nice little bit of safety net for them, so maybe he'll have a little bit of safety and validation in that hunter role.
Yeah, I'm just ready to see some assassins again, man. I'm done with these Osirises, these Erlang Shens, these Gilgameshes. It's time to see the Lokis or the Bastets, or probably not the Bastets or the Lokis, but the Thors. I don't know, just anything from an assassin tree. Pick up a dart, toss it at your screen with the assassin tree open. I'll be happy to see it.
Well, talking back with the hunters, let's talk a little bit about Emilito here.
He's
He's been struggling a little bit in this duo lane, but he has been able to make some decent strides. The Izanami, the Rom, even this Jing Wei that he was able to bring out in previous matchups have been looking really good for him. He's been able to make safer plays as the latter half of Phase 2 came through, and even in his earlier matchup so far here in Phase 3.
Yeah, Emilito at the beginning of Season 8 really was struggling, but you could tell that he's got some of that rust off now. He's playing a lot more comfortably. He's been able to turn around some of these fights, even finding a couple of solo kills himself. His team fight phase, I would argue, is probably the best facet of his game as a hunter. The laning phase generally seems to be where he struggles most, but don't sleep on him. Or this is going to happen to you. Even in a 2v1 situation, you got to put some respect on Emilito. He's got that ability to turn things around. He's one of the most veteran players to have done it, man. He's been doing this for going on 6 or 7 years now. This guy's clearly got some stuff he can still teach the new ones.
I think I might put it best. This is a former 2-time world champion, also going against another 2. So we're actually going to have the double 2 times facing off against each other in the dual lane. Should be an interesting match to see the sparks fly between these ones. I'm curious how the draft is going to change up with the hunters. We've been seeing a little bit less focus on Artemis recently. It's mostly been a lot of Roms. Even Chernobog has kind of been one of these hunters that have been rising up a little bit more. Even Heimdall has been a big priority for these hunters.
Yeah, I think Artemis probably falls off a little bit now because of the attack speed bow build changes. You're getting 10% less from Odie bow. Ichabel eats a little bit of a nerf as well. So that all kind of adds up to where Silver Branch isn't looking like nearly as strong as it once did. So instead, we're looking at other gods that bring a little bit more to the battleground. I would still argue that Artemis is a phenomenal god. She still does fit into the majority of team compositions. Caledonia Boar still incredibly strong as well. But, you're right to call out Rom, man. That god has been an absolute standout this weekend. He has been dominant. The ultimate has been impactful, and I'm expecting to see either Rom bans or Rom picks in this set.
I think Barracuda may have put it best as Rom is just one of those great. If there's a dive composition going against you, just grab Rom, because then you get that 5-6 seconds of immunity just by sitting in the sky, making sure that you have time for your team to rotate over and help you out, or even maybe go for some of those long-range snipes that not in many other gods in the game really have the opportunity to do so. And we've been seeing a lot of success out of Rom from the hunter role. So interested to see where he'll fall in line for picks and bans, if he'll be a top priority. We've been seeing a lot of top 3 Rom, even some top 2 out of some of these teams.
Yeah, we've been seeing Khepri get a lot of pick priority. I mean, a couple of times we've seen some of these squads just let Tiamat fall through. She seems to be falling by the wayside more often than not recently in the SPL. So I'm excited to see it, man. I mean, with 8.8 balance just really coming out recently and 8.9 on the horizon, it feels like a lot of these teams are really shifting up what they're prioritizing inside of the P's and B's. So maybe today we get a little bit of a sneak peek of what we can expect to see going forward in Season 8, or we're going to stick to that tried and true classics.
We'll see how everything falls into place. Tiamat has been, for my money, getting through one too many times onto one too many good players, namely Paul.
Yep, okay.
Namely Paul. I mean, the fact he's played, 6 games in a row of Tiamat is a little unheard of. Maybe we'll see some Tiamat come out through here with these two teams. Shinto has shown some strong prowess on the god, but Shinto also has quite a few other gods in the pool. Raijin has been one of his go-tos. I would have to check the stat with Gore because I don't remember if the Raijin is still undefeated or if it did take a loss during playoffs. I'm not 100% sure exactly, but that has been one of his go-to gods when everything else fails. And when I say everything else fails, I mean when Tiamat and Morgan Le Fay were banned, that usually was the god that he'd go towards.
Or he could fall back towards the Merlin. We've seen Shinto bust out the Yanis once or twice in his time as well. That guy he's versatile, man. I mean, if you're dedicating bans to Shinto, you're probably wasting bans. He's got a deep god pool, but the same can be said of the mid laner on the other side. Zero's another historied player within SMITE, has got a pretty large god pool himself, is capable of playing the Raijins, the Tiamats. He's played the Merlin a couple times. He himself is a Yanis practitioner, or as I like to call them, Yanis abusers. Just being able to walk through walls kind of makes Mifflin a little bit salty, but I think both of these squads have got a lot of resources that they can lean back on. Specifically, I'm curious to see what the Soul Lane matchup looks like. Very recently, we've seen the Valkyries kind of prioritize Ducky's pick, so we'll see whether or not the Atlantis Leviathans are going to toss some respect his way or just say, hey, Yarkor, we're going to let him get what he wants. Let's just see what you can do up against it.
Let's take a look at where all the priority is for these two teams. Picks and bans for game number 1. Leviathans, with that first pick option, will want to leave quite a few big points available to themselves. Yamoja has still been a big one. Even despite her nerfs, teams really still love this god. Even with a few seconds off that ultimate, I mean, you can throw 2 walls up in the middle of the jungle or middle of a lane anywhere, and it's basically just a, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to it? Do you have your leap up? Nope. You're probably dead. You have your Aegis up? Nope. Well, I hope that you can survive the damage coming from it. Instead, we'll see as our first bans come through, it will be Khepri that you were highlighting earlier, has been rising up a lot more recently, and Hell, who has, I'm just going to say, who has unfortunately still been kind of in this top spot here. Nobody really wants to go against this Hell.
I mean, that healing is just so annoying to deal with. The fact that she can just give her teammates beads with that cleanse feels pretty good as well. So the Valkyrie's going to go ahead and address that one early on and say, hey, man, we're just not trying to play against that here today. So what are the Leviathans going to go to with their next slot? It's going to be that Artemis, showing that they still do put a lot of respect on this god. They still think that she is incredibly strong, and I tend to agree with them. But as of right now, I'd say that there's so many priority picks still available that the Leviathans are in a very good position. With 2 targeted bans, Khepri and Hell, being dropped off, leaving so many meta picks out there. I mean, this could be a situation where the Leviathans, I was about to say, could pick up Artio, but is banned out now by the Valkyries. Yamoja still out there, Tiamat, all these picks that are just so incredibly potent are on the board.
Osiris, Erlong Shen, Raijin, the list goes on. I mean, we could sit here and just name off a bullet list of all the guys that are still able and still meta pick worthy of these top spots to be grabbed. Odin being one of those, he'll be banned away by the Atlantis Leviathans. A little bit of target towards that dual lane. The Khepri and Artemis, 2 gods that Raffer and Emilitu specifically really like going to. It kind of is their safe haven. They're kind of their fallback gods. They really like to play when they're back against the wall.
Yeah, Raffer still does have that comfort pick inside of the Geb available to him, so we might see that one come out here today. He's also been known to go towards the Kuzenbo, kind of a la Neil Ma, so Raffer doesn't have to feel too bad, and we know that Emil loves his Jingweis, his Hachimans, his Heimdalls as well, so not too much pressure out here as of right now. The Valkyries still hovering on their 3rd ban, trying to decide what it is they want to target out. Gotta think it's the Tiamat, right? Gotta think that the Tiamat's gonna get banned.
You gotta imagine, but we've seen teams who just ignore the Tiamat outright, and it'll be a Cerberus ban in that 3rd slot for the Valhalla Valkyries, taking some of those shots towards the solo lane, but it'll be a Yamoja left open for Leviathans. They're gonna grab that one as quick as possible to make sure to get Rong Yu on a top priority god and a top support as far as the meta goes.
So the Valks now are in a spot where they could take away Erlang Shen and Osiris if they want to completely eliminate that super meta jungle pool from the Leviathans, or they could prioritize the Tiamat. And I think they're right to do so, picking the Tiamat for themselves here. Had they left it up, it's very likely that the Leviathans take it in their second phase, and they're going to go ahead and pair that with the Erlang Shen. That is a lot of kill potential very early on inside of the 2v2. I mean, turtle form transformation immediately into the stun from Tiamat is just going to be insane damage in its own right, and that's not accounting for the rest of the abilities that are left and available. Leviathans, though, toss a little bit of a curveball here. Sobek locked in. I think it's pretty clear that it's likely headed for solo.
We saw a little bit of Sobek yesterday, actually. It was kind of Sobek Cerberus was a bit of more of the solo lane action as far as things go. So seeing it here, maybe not entirely surprising. Maybe surprising to see it kind of picked up here immediately as a second pick. But Raijin to tail alongside of it. That'll give Shinto something comfortable in the mid lane to go up against this Tiamat, something with some safe long-range poke. And Erlang Shen for Johnny on the other side of the Valkyries. He's been showing to really like this god. It gives him a lot of long-range setup for his mid laner. Should need to get it, but also some good CC and some good chase and lockdown potential to try and get some early kills on the mid, even into the dual lane.
But that Raijin pick on the other side from the Leviathans could do a lot to shut down that early aggression from the Erlang Shen. I mean, Raijin should be able to dominate Tiamat throughout the early laning phase, and if Tiamat's getting poked out, it makes it that much less appetizing for Erlang Shen to show up inside of that lane. This Terra selection, though, I actually do really like for the Valkyries. It's a easy just go button inside of the team fight, low execution, toss Earthern Fury anywhere on the map, be it on your allies or be it on your enemies, and you're going to have a huge boon in these late game 5-on-5s. I mean, the engage factor is there. She locks down entire jungle pass. The 9 turns blessing with Blink from Erlang Shen can act as that secondary engage. So now all the Valkyries need is their ADC and likely their soul laner. It is worth noting that Terra does have very minuscule flex potential into the solo lane, but I would like to see a little bit more consistent damage now from the Valkyries draft, something that you can really rely on to help you out in these team fights.
The Valkyries are going to put some focus towards banning out the jungle and the dual lane even. They'll take the Osiris and a Rom away, and Leviathans, they'll make a couple of targeted bans over towards Emilitu, taking a Jingwei and an Izanami. So quite a few hunter bans, but neither team have their hunters just yet. Valkyries going to want to grab something big and early here, and it will be Heimdall, something for that safety factor you were talking about earlier, something that Emil can, if he's taking too much damage, can just sit under the tower, get some nice clean farm, something that can also dive towards that backline if need be. The Leviathans respond with a very interesting dodgy Hachiman as a back two.
I mean, Zap just loves this Hachiman pick, man. It's similar to the Heimdall, which I think was picked by the Valkyries essentially as another ban. I'm not sure that... I mean, I know Emil is very capable of playing this god. We saw it a couple times on the highlight reel, but that's a god that we really associate with Zapman here in the SPL, and it's one that he loves to go towards, so utilizing that pick as a secondary ban is going to be pretty nice for them. And then the Hachiman on the other side, just trying to match up some of that safety inside of the lane, actually has deceptively good 1v1 potential. If you're quick on the Jutsu, you can stun out the Gallarhorn, but the same can be said of Gallarhorn just knocking you out of the dash. So it's a very high execution 1v1 between these two hunters. I saw the Geb hover from the Valkyries. I thought that would fit with this draft incredibly well. Again, just another great engage tool, but when you're talking about engage tools, Athena is hard to beat, right? I mean, just dash up, confound on cooldown feels very good, but the follow-up is a little bit inconsistent here from the Valkyries. I mean, Tiamat damage is kind of over time as you got to channel that first ability. The stun is going to be pretty easy to apply, but it's not as if we're finding a taunt into a large AoE damage ability. It's not like you got a Kraken on your side or like a Searing Pain or something along those lines, or even a Tycho Drums. It's a very high execution draft here from the Valkyries, barring that Terra. I'm going to keep saying it. Terra's super easy.
It kind of feels like almost like a 3 or 4 protect 1 composition coming here from the Valkyries. They have a lot of peel, a lot of setup for their mid laner, and a lot of setup for their hunter. Heimdall can put some big damage out no matter which path he decides to go, whether it be crit, whether it be more of just the attack speed and pen tree available to it. So Valkyries, they've drafted more so just a lot of CC. Leviathans going for a ton of damage in their composition, though they have quite a bit of CC to their name as well. With this Dodgy kind of rounding out this comp, you talked a little bit about SCC. If Dodgy has ways of benefiting from burning beads? Does she have other gods around her to burn those beads? Is this a composition that you like the Daji in?
Yeah, and it's not just that Daji needs someone to burn beads for, it's the fact that Daji can also burn beads for her allies. As long as there's multiple targets that can apply CC on your team composition, I think Daji is going to fit in incredibly well. And taking it to this comp, I mean, you've got Yamoja. She's not really the best at utilizing beads burn. It's not very often that someone's like using beads to deal with Riptide or something along those lines. But Sobek, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, in the late game, if you land a pluck against somebody who has beads, you're probably the one that's dying. But luckily, Palau is going to be the one to set you up here. And then Sobek's got some pretty decent targets to take out. No CC immunity in Erlang Shen's ultimate. Terra, sure, if she's got her Monolith out, can utilize that. But outside of that, pretty easy to find a pluck on her. Even Athena as well. So I think it does really fit this draft well.
Before we hop into the game, we do have a very quick lobby remake for these teams. They're going to go ahead and get that set up. So we're going to take it to a quick break, and then we'll try and get back here as quick as we can to bring you guys the action. desk. We're going to get into the game as quick as we can. It's a bit of a server remake just to make sure that everybody has the most competitively integrity. I don't even.
We are going to maintain competitive integrity by resetting the servers here.
That's the words I was looking for, Mifflin.
Gotcha,
You got me
bud.
on the backup. Thanks for that one.
That's what I'm here
but
for.
before we hop into the game, let's take one more look at the picks and bans we've got for these teams. Kind of take a final dive in these drafts. Valkyries compositions. Loving the CC that they've drafted here. They're going to be trying to maybe use Johnny as more of that facilitator that they have been in recent weeks as Erlong Shen. I think that's the pick to do it for him.
Yeah, I think so. This Valkyries draft screams to me early game dominance, right? You've got Erlang Shen to bridge you there. I mean, Athena's going to have decent setup, but my main concern with this draft is their ability to team fight inside of the late game. Sure, you've got great CC, but the damage that you're setting up for is a little bit disjointed. It's a little bit questionable to me. But if they do pull a lead, the Valkyries that is, that could just make up for that deficit inside of this composition. I mean, if you're 2 levels up, it doesn't really matter what god you're playing. You're going to be slamming.
And it has been a lot of early game focus for the Valkyries. The last few sets have been making sure to try and get that early 15, 20-minute lead. It's just been the fights beyond that 15, 20 minutes that have been a little bit rougher for them. It's been a little bit tough for them to try and close these sets out. And sometimes that happens on teams that haven't been able to find too many wins. Is they're not used to being at that later stage more, so they're kind of struggling to find it. But the Valkyries have been getting a little bit closer every single set they've played recently.
They have been, and I don't think the Valkyries, any singular one of these players, is not used to a late game situation. Worth noting that Raffer, in his prime, would drag every game kicking and swimming to the 70 or 80 minute mark on purpose. Like, he chose that. So if the Valkyries do find themselves in the late game, I'm sure they can lean back on that leadership.
Well, can that leadership pay off for the Valkyries in our first set of the day? We're going to take it over to Gormizer and Aggro to bring the game.
That's right, we're going to figure out if the Valkyrie are going to be able to show up today. Not an easy starting weekend for them here. The Leviathans making sure that they are trying to start off as well as they can, already with 1 win under their belt. And I'm going to go ahead and say, Aggro, I see Shinto on Raijin and Rongyu on Yamoja. The game seems pretty hard from here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Valkyries are already behind it a little bit because of the draft, but they've got some good tools as well. I really like their double Guardian front line. I think that they've got great CC across their composition. Anytime you've got an Erlong Shen, you've got great CC kind of by default. And you've got the ability to really play front to back in these team fights in a very easy way. You know, Athena taunt into Tiamat and Heimdall damage, then it's Erlong taunt into Tiamat and Heimdall damage, and then it's Terra Root into Tiamat and Heimdall damage. Yeah, you're getting it. That strategy can work here for the Valkyries, especially if they can jump out to a lead and start isolating some members of Leviathans. This is a composition that's really easy to get pick kills with.
Well, I like the fact that we're already seeing a little bit of aggression, actually from the duo lane more than anything. You'd mentioned the Athena taunt. Raffer did hit 2. They're putting pressure onto Zap and Rongyu. This is actually something that has kind of caught me off guard, if I'm being honest. I see Athena, I see Terra, both have had their time in the solo lane, both have had their time as the true Guardian support. I'm going to have to hold that thought for a second. Yeah, Panatom safely escaping. But I honestly would have looked at this and thought Athena solo. What merits do they have, I guess, swapping it this way, giving Ducky the Terra?
I'm a bit surprised as well, because Ducky has been a really good Athena solo player throughout his career. But with the Terra in the solo lane, it just makes sure that you aren't under real threat from this Sobek. The plucks underneath his tower and displacing you for these ganks, it's going to be a lot harder for Yarkor to get those going because of the Terra passive. And I think that the lane matchup alone might be the biggest reason there.
Well, it's just been a constant trade of tirades over here in the duo lane. I feel like no matter what, someone's going to be at half health, and eventually those health pots are going to disappear, and it's going to be a little more stick to it. But Emilito, Raffer are going to be able to back off here and be just fine. And it has been that aggression. I mean, you had mentioned the double taunt. As of right now, you've got Raffer, who's already going to be providing a lot of good setup. Notably, if Rongyu hovering relatively low Omi, they don't have a lot of easy disengage from this Athena.
No, there's good mobility for the backline between the Hachiman and the Raijin, of course, with their mobilities. But overall, I think Leviathan's could be trouble.
Well, Panatom gonna jump in, a nice pluck onto Ducky. They're looking to find the damage, but they don't seem to have enough. In fact, they've got Johnny over here.
Nice.
A good wall setup, blocks off Yarkor's X-Half, and they're gonna be able to find the damage. Ducky picks up first blood. Panatom just has to watch.
Beautiful play from Ducky. We're not going to talk about the Bush speeds at all. Instead, we're going to talk about how good the 2 was that he put down. It was all in the name of baiting there, Gormizer. Perfect wall from Ducky. Does collapse it right away, knows that the pin is going to come in. And Yarkor, without that charge prey, is the prey himself. A good turnaround and a good start for the Valks.
Ooh, a good Riptide in the duo lane. Zapman looks to dash forward, doesn't get the stun, but the damage is still there. Raffer's low, Imolito is getting lower. They're gonna be just out of range here. Zap looking for blood, but not gonna be able to find it.
Still might be able to get some good pressure here because purple buff is coming up now, or is already up rather, for the Valkyries and the Leviathans. But if they don't know where Johnny is, they really can't afford to go for these invades. And if I'm Johnny, I'm just trying to stay out of sight. Maybe try and force Leviathans off with just the threat of my rotation.
Oh, there's a good Riptide. They bring Raffer back in, but the stun doesn't connect. It doesn't matter. The banner falls down and finds the kills. That man picks up one on the other side, and now maybe starting to worm their way even more aggressively. We can see Johnny starting to lurk on this side of the jungle, at least coming to help with the purple buff. Emil doesn't really have the health to fight.
No, that's going to be Johnny alone trying to clear this one out, but he's along. His clear speed is really good, so that will be secured before the Leviathans duo lane can get there. Like the idea for the Leviathans, they kind of pump fake going for the
Zap
invade.
is at the tower line.
Yeah, and he'll continue to be right there for a while, because that's exactly where he wants to be, especially on a god like Hachiman that just lets you make the really aggressive, flashy plays with the EI Jutsu and the ultimate. Does not surprise me at all that this is where Zap wants to be. But that little pump fake kind of baits Raffer into stepping up to try and keep those minions out of the tower line and ensure that ML is going to get gold for them. And then the Leviathan's really ready for it. Rongyu, and you're going to hear this a lot today, at least set that one up.
Yeah, that's standard at this point. Like there was a certain period of time where and honestly, I don't know that it's actually lapsed. If the Leviathans got Yamoja, the game felt like it was done because the Yamoja does so much for them. I have to double check just to make sure that is the case. It was the case for a long time on the Raijin as well. There's another good Riptide from Rongyu, but now it's Zapman maybe who bit off more than they can chew. Imolito gets aggressive, uses the ult, but the beads from Zap keep him on the ground. Imol backs off. Zap stays alive.
Really like that play from Imolito, but now Raffer's caught.
Oh, a nice reverse rebuke, but it's Raffer getting aggressive. Taunts in Zapman trying to keep him locked down, but Rongyu with the peel, it doesn't matter. Imolito is going to be able to find the last hit necessary and kill the opposing hunter.
Love the aggressiveness out of this Valks duo lane. They're not backing down as soon as the Leviathans start to step up. That was a really good play from Imolito whenever Raffer looked to be the target, that just consistently putting damage on a Zapman while Zap is kind of busy with his support, and then forces and beads. Ultimates are down for Zapman. Even though Rongyu locks in Raffer, Zap's just not doing that much damage at this point in the game. He's got Leather Cowl into Hunter's Bow. He doesn't have that Ichabod done quite yet. And that lack of damage ends up just baiting Zap and Rongyu to stay a little bit too long, and ML comes back with a nice play.
Well, now we're starting to see the transition. Raffer's now in mid lane, forces the dash out of Shinto pretty easily there. Didn't even throw out the taunt. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Athena has. Really good at rotations, really good, doubly so, at using her ult to help close the gap. If Emil's ever in trouble, it won't be for long. The Valkyries controlling a lot of this early game. I mean, 1,000 gold lead. It's not often that we get to see them in this position.
No, they're in a good position now. And with their style of composition, like I was talking about, I think that they could really leverage it pretty well. Raffer's a little bit behind because of the War Flag versus the Sentinels. Take a look at his net worth that was up just a minute ago. He's down a good amount of gold already and a little bit of XP. But if you can start to get ahead, War Flag lets you be really aggressive and get all these little procs and use your reach damage and find your gold that way.
I'm so used to not seeing War Flag there. I don't even check the starters half the time for support specifically.
Raffer
it's either
did it earlier too,
or it's the Sentinels. But yeah, I mean, does it have its own merits? You had mentioned some of the extra little ticks it can give you.
I think Sentinels is pretty clearly better still than War Flag or Benevolence. So Benevolence getting a change on Tuesday, I believe, to change that passive up. We'll see after that. War Flag, the risk is just too high for the reward that you get at this level. If you want to play War Flag with Horus or something like that in your ranked games, you can make it work. You can get some good procs, all that kind of stuff. But I think at this level, if Raffer is dashing in order to get his reach proc so that he can get his gold, he's just going to get punished a little bit too often. And so he's playing it the way he should. He's playing it smart, not wasting cooldowns in order to get his gold. But by not using the cooldowns to get the gold, he's also going to end up falling behind in that regard.
And you can see he's still level 6-6. Might be net worth that it maybe ends up changing for him. Emil getting aggressive there. Uses the ult to try and chase down Zapman. Is still looking for some damage. They're not going to be able to lock him down this time. While we're talking about items, at least at the very beginning of the builds, Yarkor went back to Rangda's mask after the nerf for this patch specifically, the 8.8 bonus. And it's something that we've seen, I think, every other solo laner so far avoid. I'm waiting to see. Euros looks like he wants to get aggressive. Johnny definitely wants to get aggressive. Rongyu might actually be in a bad spot here, surrounded by a couple members of the Valkyries. He's going to throw up the River's Rebuke. Not even look for the disengage. Instead, Panatom's going to go in. They've got the Taiko drums. They're looking for Johnny. One hit away, and it's going to be the follow-up from Shinto that cleans that one up. But Raffer goes in. A good taunt onto Panatom. He's low, and he is so close to dead, but no one seems to be able to close the gap. A good blink from Panatom gets him out of there, even with the rotation from Ducky.
Shinto all the while zoning out Zeros. Doesn't have enough get the kill, but should be safe from here. Still has his dash. Might have to use beads, but no, he won't. Love that play from Rongyu. Looks like he's in a really bad spot. And just Leviathans willing to hard commit onto a play that the Valkyries didn't realize was all that serious. You know, River's Rebuke, Powwow, Taiko drums, and the focus was Johnny, who only level 8, can't really stand up against a level 10 Raijin. That damage became a little bit too much. It felt like the Valkyries couldn't decide if they want to try and get out in that situation or continue aggressively. They couldn't really decide where to go. A little bit of hesitation really cost them.
And it just seemed like it was almost like there was too much. There were so many targets. Who do we go on? Who do we collapse on? And we could who do we go on? Who do we collapse on? And we could see Rongyu, maybe not the easiest to burn down. Still only level 8 for the Emoja. Not a lot of like protections, things like that. Not as tanky as you'd expect, but still not the easiest person to take down. No. And that seems to be the case for a lot of the Leviathans, but it did showcase what the Valkyries, at least in my mind, have as their game plan, which was a nice rotation from Ducky. Yeah. Very early on, especially because Terra needs to be in these fights.
And he's got a good lead from that early gank and the kill that they got over in solo, and the pressure that he's been able to secure on this Terra. It certainly has had more pressure than Yarkor on the Sobek, despite Yarkor going with that fighter's mask. I think that Yark goes that because he doesn't have to worry too much about the physical damage in lane. You know, Vamp Shroud has that physical prot up against another Guardian. Maybe doesn't want to do that, but clearly not a big problem for Ducky. I don't think that you need Vamp Shroud in these Guardian v Guardian matchups, but I don't think it really hurts you either. I am a bit surprised to see Yarkor go for the fighter's mask.
Well, either way, picking it up. We'll see how it treats them for the rest of the game. They both have gone, I believe it was both, yeah, the Genji's guard as well afterwards. So some cooldown. I expect to start seeing Sobek and Terra in a lot more of these fights. Terra maybe even more so than the Sobek, just based on what Ducky was doing in that last fight.
And I really like the Tyrannical Plate Helm on the Terra because she's a god that actually threatens backline as a Guardian. She does that much damage. And it's also, for the most part, unaegisable damage with the way the ultimate works.
A taunt on to Shinto. His beads get forced out, and he's going to Thunder Crash out of there. Powwow comes through from Panatom. He's pulling in Johnny, gets the damage. River's Rebuke has completely surrounded him. That is going to be a clean jungle v jungle kill, although there was definitely some murky waters there. A little assistance from the team to help him lock it down.
A perfect River's Rebuke again from Rongyu, another phrase we're probably going to be saying a lot in this game. And just perfect timing on the purification beads. Johnny gets pulled in off that Powwow with 5 seconds left on his beads, and even with the damage mitigation there from Raffer, who was quick on the trigger, did not waste time on that Defender of Olympus. A full channel Taiko drums, and don't forget how much damage Powwow does as well. It's really backloaded. It does the vast majority of its damage whenever you get pulled to the Powwow itself, but it does a lot of burn damage. And between that damage and the Taiko drums, even with the mitigation from Raffer, Johnny wasn't living through it.
Especially per shot. This is the one thing I think a lot of people, and it's easy to forget about, but like, just because they're chained doesn't mean you got to stop hitting them. Just keep keep slamming it down as much as you can. And of course, that's where Panatom was with that. The kill on the Johnny. That's 2 now for the jungler here for the Valkyries. It's kind of surprising. I was actually looking at it. Zap just secured the Greater Scorpion on the left-hand side and has been in this interesting position because he was, and this game, at least this lane, was incredibly fraught with violence. And so far, it's slowed down heavily. In fact, it's shifted over to mid. It's wherever Raffer happens to be. Unfortunately for Raffer, it is not him driving it forward. Taunt is what I'm looking for here. Shinto gets the Thunder Crash, but he's getting chased down. Half health, and the Valkyries are starting to swarm around him. But Zeros is out of the fight. They don't have the damage for it. Johnny comes in, a good taunt from the ult. That 9 turns blessing will get the heal and get the kill.
Finally, Shinto falls, and that taunt doesn't find a home on a Panatom. Look at Yarkor trying to stay off vision in case the Valkyries get too aggressive. But a good pick on Ashinto. Beads were down earlier, and the pressure has been there from the Valkyries. They've been active on the map.
Oh, and proactive is going to continue here. Gold Fury started up by the Valkyries, but they're not sure if they want to collapse in on it. Emilito, Rafa are going to be on that side. Yarkor finally gets involved in the fight, but he's half health. He's getting burned down by the surrounding Valkyries. Zapman's forced out of the fight as well. Yarkor barely staying alive, and the pin is going to secure the kill. Johnny picks up one. Rong Yu now isolated. Rivers Rebuke locked up, but he's not able to make it out of there. Ducky picks up a kill, and this should be a Gold Fury.
Valkyries just bringing the CC early, just too much damage onto these frontliners from the Leviathans. Yarkor waltzes in, thinking he's going to be able to do whatever he wants, but one taunt, and Emilito just nearly 100 to zeros him because Yarkor was sitting on Iron Mail 1. Had, what, 10 physical prot so far? That's nothing. He is so squishy, and the Valkyries really played around that well. Ducky has been in mid 3 times now and has really made an impact every single time, does a ton of damage with that Terra on that rotation, and the Valkyries come into play here today. Love their aggressiveness so far. I think that they've been using their frontline CC really well between Raffer, Ducky, and Johnny.
Not an easy feat, yeah, to get a lead over the Leviathans. It's something I would honestly say if you had told me that the Valkyries had done this year, I'd be surprised with it. This is a night and day difference in what we have seen out of them for a lot of Phase 1, and definitely a little bit there at the beginning of Phase 2. And it is such a good pickup for them to be able to turn it around, especially being able to read things, the Rivers Rebukes. I think that what we're seeing from this team, despite the fact that the Leviathans prior to that moment had been kind of driving things, showcases that the Valkyries are not only in a different zone, but like their shot calling is on point as well. They're even doing a Pyromancer right now.
Yep, they have not stopped, the pace just because they've gotten a lead. If anything, they've accelerated that pace and have put themselves in a good position.
A good taunt onto Panatom in the mid lane. Zeros is low though. Hasn't been as big a part of these fights as you would expect. Usually when the Erlong's around, don't have to worry about it too much, but he's going to back off here. It seems like that's going to be the call for both teams. Leviathans, Valkyries go back to their own ways as they wait. Zeros doesn't have his ult, but everything else available for the Valkyries, and that double taunt is just a combo that I think they're starting to worry about.
I think so too. You have to, because now Raffer has that extra movement speed from the Wing Blade. Would love to see a Relic Dagger from him as well. I think that keeping the enemy as uncomfortable as possible with your Blink taunts is really important on Athena, and so the ability to do it more often just leads to them not knowing exactly when your Blink is up, change the math for them a little bit, they think it might be down, it's up because it's up 30 seconds earlier, and then you can make a play happen based on that. The big key for the Valkyries as this game continues is to understand that the Leviathans are a team with 5 beads now that Panatom has picked them up post-level 12. You have to be ready to use a CC and not overcommit onto it. Don't dump everything into killing the first person that they taunt, because you're going to be able to force beads very, very easily with this composition. How well can the Valkyries go in, get some relics, and then retreat without being committed upon by the Leviathans? Because oftentimes when you're playing against a CC-heavy comp like this, as soon as your beads are down, your best defense is a good offense. So you've got to try and jump in and kill them before their next CC that will kill you is off cooldown. So I'm looking for the Leviathans to probably use Yarkor, beads the taunt, and then instantly pluck Raffer back and try and start a fight instantly.
We'll see who's going to get their beats forced here. Zapman doesn't use his for the taunt. It might end up costing him a little bit. A lot of damage being thrown his way. Zeros gets a lot done. Johnny is going to follow up the pin. Not enough. Zapman makes it out of there thanks to the Rivers Rebuke from Rong Yu, but they've got 4 members. Make it 5 as Ducky comes around the corner. Oni Fury's still a little over a minute from respawning. And the Valkyries don't get the kills they were looking for, but they do make Zap feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, no shot on Earth that Zap is using relics in that situation. You couldn't pay the man to use his relics like that, and it's because he didn't need to. Just understood that Rong Yu was going to be there. That little heal that Rong Yu tossed out in the back end was really critical.
Well, now they're getting aggressive. Rong Yu is the one who is under the eyes of the Valkyries. They're getting aggressive. Good knockup from Zeros as the damage starts to run their way. The Tier 1 tower doing more than enough to ward them away. Zapman now isolated alone. Still has his relics, as you had highlighted. But up onto the Powwow goes Panatom. Zapman is the one who's getting aggressed on. Ducky gets pulled out. Raffer is the first to fall in this engagement. The Valkyries wanted it, and the Leviathans answer.
They sure do. Emilito puts down Zapman, and now the Leviathan's still on the run, but Yarkor plenty healthy.
Yeah, changing everything he can. Imolito just trying to get out of here, trying to get through the Bifrost, but it's not gonna take him. Yarkor finds that kill. Good damage turnaround, carry for carry with a sprinkling of support, and it's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Leviathans.
The other Bifrost Crystal just too far away for Imolito to transport with any sort of speed. Looks like he actually put another one down as a way to try and get out, but that's still a great fight from the Valkyries, and they did exactly what I was asking them to do. They go in, they get relics on the Rongyu, they get relics on the Shinto, and then they back up. They wait for the Leviathans to try and counterpunch, and the Leviathans way overplay their hand. Zapman comes in from an awkward angle. Panatom just blink ults when everyone still has their beads up. He only got one set there from Ducky as well, so that's kind of worst case scenario for him, is that his big blink ultimate doesn't really get a whole lot of value. And the Valkyries, all their CC comes up at the right time, and they're able to taunt back in Panatom, taunt back in Zapman, get his relics. Think that the Leviathans have to slow the pace down a little bit and try and talk about how they want these fights to go. Who wants to go in first? How are we going to use our relics? Those sorts of things need to be communicated ahead of time.
Well, Zapman, as I just saw a crit pop up, did finish off the Wind Demon. There's the taunt. Rongyu is locked down between 3, but will he be able to make it out of this one? A good Riptide tries, but it's not going to be enough. They collapse in, and they kill the support, no problem.
Double taunt, just so difficult to deal with, even as a frontliner, and not a lot of CCR quite yet from the Leviathans. That's another thing that earlier this season, it was really hard to run compositions like this because tank boots just gave you so much crowd control reduction right off the bat. But without boots, tanks don't really prioritize that crowd control reduction that early. So no Spirit Robes yet. Would certainly love to see one. Surprised that Yarkor went Mantle instead of Spirit Robe.
The Leviathan, Zapman gets a Draugr, but they get the Oni Fury on the other side. The Valkyries more than happy with that. Zapman uses his ult, but Raffer goes in anyway. The taunt is going to be there, keeps him engaged. Johnny looks for the kill. Johnny finds the kill, and they all manage to get out with their lives for now. Panatom right around the corner, catches out Johnny, blink for blink. Panatom gets out, but the dash is going to be good. The shots from the Powwow follow up. Johnny will fall down here, and Panatom potentially trying to chase off Raffer, low health, as he's lurking in the left side jungle.
Feels real bad there for Johnny to use the beads and then die anyways, because just the shot damage from the Powwow wasn't enough.
Oh, Raffer blinks in, low health, one hit, but it doesn't matter. Panatom follows him and gets the kill onto that, but Panatom now might be the one who ends up falling, bites off more than he can chew. Imolito and Zeros versus the world, it feels like. Yarkor has made his way to the duo lane. Imolito gets through the Bifrost. Rongyu was waiting, and a great Riptide locks him down. Yarkor gets the kill there. Now it's the question of lockup onto Zeros. They've got a minion wave. It feels like Yarkor wants to go fight, but nobody else is there.
I'm sure they do want to go fight, but I don't think they're going to find a whole lot at the other end of that dive. Unfortunate for Imolito. He sends Rongyu through the realms and then tries to pull Yarkor away from where his Bifrost Crystal is, which makes sense, but Rongyu landed right next to that Bifrost Crystal when he got ulted, so a bit of unfortunate timing there.
Well, Zeros almost overstaying their welcome. I'm trying to figure out, and maybe we'll see it in passing, where the other half of that crystal was, because it does take longer to channel the further away it was, and it felt like Imolito is definitely caught off in a lot of these moments where it's just like, if it had just been a little faster, you might have made it out of there. So small little details like that are going to make the big difference. That's not a big gap, though, as you see him in the background on that shot. But they still get an Oni Fear. I mean, the gold lead mostly still favors the Valkyries. It's about the same that it's been all game.
Yeah, they're still in a slight lead position, but Yarkor's rotation over to duo, make sure they pick up Imolito, make sure that Panatom gets Raffer. Those little kills have really made a big difference for the Leviathans in keeping this game competitive. But the Valkyries still, I think, until the Leviathans are ready to win a 5-on-5 and can handle all the CC from the Valkyries, and Ducky being there. Remember, that fight, Ducky wasn't there at all, and he's been a big part of the success so far for the Valks.
Pyromancer sitting at about 1/4 HP. Pyromancer will get taken down. Leviathans are going to be able to secure that one, but Ducky had tried his best to make sure. There's where that Phantom comes in. He picked it up a little while ago and will walk right through the Rivers of Buke and keep themselves alive. Leviathans get themselves the Pyromancer, and they're going to go ahead and back off.
And this is where it can get scary for the Valkyries, because look at their sets of beads in comparison to the Leviathans. And even though I've talked so much about the CC for the Valkyries, you've got to respect that from the Leviathans as well, namely from this Daji and Sobek, as their execution becomes very easy if they know that, say, Johnny doesn't have his beads. That's why I really like this Magi's pickup from Johnny.
and his beads come up at the same time, so now he feels like he can effectively play in these team fights. Think that that's going to have to be a big key, is can Leviathans actually initiate any fights with Yarkor or Panatom?
A Fire Giant started by the Valkyries of all teams, and they're going to go ahead and taunt Yarkor. They pull him in. He's alone as of right now. Rong Yu will be joining the fray, but it's slowly but surely morphing into a full 5-on-5. Yarkor still low. Johnny gets aggressive and is trying to chase down Shinto. Won't be able to get the kill, and instead turns his eyes to Panatom. Goes up onto the powwow, and now the Daji is looking for some chains. A couple of shots towards Raffer, pulls him on back, but it's Shinto, it's Panatom who are in danger right here. Panatom goes down, and Johnny is chasing down the mid laner. One more hit is all he needs, but a good Thunder Crash gets him out of there. So far, a 1 for none.
The backline from the Valkyries so healthy too. I mean, they are not under any pressure. And they've got the sustain on their side from this Terra. They can go right back towards this Fire Giant. The big key, though, is that Shinto still has Taiko drums, but he backed. He didn't stick around.
Now, Rong Yu is here. No River's Rebuke and nothing to help separate the team. It comes off cooldown right as I say that, and he isolates the Fire Giant. He's going to be walking forward. Valkyries managed to secure this one. Rong Yu's going to have to back off. Zapman is here as well. But the Valkyries get themselves the Fire Giant. Yet it doesn't seem like the Leviathans are done. Zapman wants to go in. Zeros has been isolated. He is sitting here alone with the team. Aegis has been used. The Taiko drums rip through and kill off the mid laner. A good pluck onto Imolito, and he is isolated, but the Bifrost pulls him out of there, and the rest of the Valkyries will stay safe.
Still, they lose Zeros. It could have been worse. I mean, I thought Imolito was going to die after that boost beats, but still ends up living. 4 members of Fire Giant for the Valkyries. I'm a little surprised that Shinto decided to back, because the Valks do not have good secure at all, and they also don't have great objective DPS. I think Tiamat is on the lower end for mages when it comes to objective DPS. Emil's gone for this no crit build, dominance, chin size, so he doesn't do very much to the Fire Giant. I think that Shinto just being so scared of this CC that the Valkyries have made a huge difference there, because if Taiko drums, I mean, that Fire Giant got so low, and it was so close from Rongi to be able to seal it away. I really thought he was going to get it with that River's Rebuke. I think the Leviathans could have very easily made a big play if Shinto had decided to stick around.
Well, unfortunately for them, we don't get to live in that world. They might be making a big play after the fact. They did pick up the Gold Fury. Now they're looking to pick up Ducky, half health, and that Terra is going to have to run away. The stun not going to connect there. They're going to take a tier 1 tower, and this is where map state comes in mind, just because I think it was 4 towers after the Fire Giant had started for the Valkyries, 5 standing for the Leviathans. And so far, it has been the Leviathans that have taken everything on the map that has been productive, proactive, and making those plays. But there's a grouping from the Valkyries here in mid.
Really, really big pick on the Zeros, because you're seeing the kind of cascading effects of that. I mean, we're 2 minutes into this Fire Giant for the Valkyries, and they haven't grouped at all. And like you said, it was the Leviathans who get the ultimate from Ducky, that get the Gold Fury, that get a tier 1 tower in mid. And now there's only 2 minutes left on this FG, and the Valkyries need to use it to just get towers. And they're so spread out across the map that it might be difficult for them to get all 4 that are left standing. They just got 1. There's still 4 left on the map. Ideally, you would clear all 4 of these before this Fire Giant wears off, but I don't know if they're going to be able to.
And now approaching a minute and a half, a long walk over to the duo lane. And they'll be able to knock that one down. It was low health. The Leviathans looking like they might set up a defense around a tier 2. They don't feel so confident in the Valkyries' lead right now. In fact, it's because there's still 200 gold in the lead if they're the Leviathans that they think it's something worth backing off from.
It's also that Emolito doesn't have any relics, Zeros doesn't have Aegis. This is an advantageous fight potentially for the Leviathans based on the backline relics alone.
Well, there's a good Riptide, good River's Rebuke. Raffer is completely isolated there. Once again, is that Phantom Veil helping him walk right through the walls, but a good pluck from Yarkor gets the beads coming down from Zeros. He's at half health. Panatom's up on the powwow, looking for some aggression. Got the beads out of Zeros, will get the stun, but it's his team that's on the back foot. Johnny is incredibly low, forced out of the fight, but the Leviathans haven't been able to pick up the kill. Same can be said for the Valkyries. Both teams have sustain, but it's Leviathans moving forward.
Panatom goes on a Raffer, but plays it nice and slow, does not want to get taunted in and lose the beads after his match ice has already fallen off. This is a massive win for the Leviathans. They lose 2 tier 1 towers to the Valkyries Fire Giant, and they got a Gold Fury. They got more than the Valkyries did with their own FG, and it's gone in 20 seconds.
And I think we're actually looking at it like, yeah, about 500 gold, and that can come down. They did 1 tier 1 there for the Leviathans as well. A little bit of aggression in mid helps alleviate even more of that pressure from the Valkyries. That Fire Giant's going to fall off. No kills picked up. So the Valkyries are going to have to try to do it one more time. They had picked up that Fire Giant, or started up that Fire Giant, I think, before the Leviathans were ready to truly commit to it. I think Yarkor was in the area, Rongyu started to move over, and it quickly coalesced into a 5-on-5. The Leviathans seem a lot more attentive now. No ults available for them, or at least Zapman, Shinto, Panatom are going to be missing theirs. Beads are down for Zeros and Immel. That's going to be huge.
Has to be, because Yarkor has found the backline pretty easily with these blink engagements. He's going for a Bumbas. Interesting. I was wondering what starter item he was going to go after all this. I kind of thought it might be a Tainted Steel. I thought that he might try and anti-heal Ducky and Johnny a little bit on these picks. But he ends up going Bumbas, Hammer, Sobek. So getting those true damage procs after using his abilities and taking flat cooldowns off means that he's going to have even more plucks, even more tail whips to deal with.
That seems good in the grand scheme of things.
Great.
I always like more plucks from my Sobek. And a good Riptide will help get Yarkor out of that engagement. Could have been good for him, could have been bad for him either way. I think you had mentioned anti-heal, and it's always nice to check up on it. Cursed Ankh has been picked up there by Rongyu, but a Pestilence, there's a Brawlers, there's a Divine Ruin. A lot that is being done here, and that's the Leviathan side of things. There's a Divine Ruin, a Toxic Blade on the other side. A couple of Spectrals now picked up as well to help deal with Zapman's crit chance. That is going to be probably ringing true in the next fight.
Have to imagine so. I wonder what Yarkor's building, because there isn't crit on the other side, so Spectral doesn't make much sense to me. I would really like to see that be a Spirit Robe. I think that mitigation is so important in these comps.
Well, River's Rebuke thrown out, traps Raffer and Ducky. And that Phantom Veil's still available. They're not going to use it. Raffer's already half health. The aggression is ringing true for the Leviathans. The Taiko drums get a little bit of damage out there, but it's not enough to lock them down. And, well, stand corrected. Shinto finds the kill for Ducky, and now Imelito's just locked up. Zapman is able to find the kill onto that. They get rid of 2, and now it's a 5v3. Johnny seems isolated. He gets the top, but it doesn't seem to be enough. They're chasing him down. A little bit more damage will do the trick, and Shinto picks up another.
Just 2 spread out there from the Valkyries. Johnny is trying to 1v1 Panatom, who can just go, nah, I don't want to 1v1 you. I'm just going to powwow and waste your time entirely. Johnny is a non-factor in that fight, and Panatom's able to hop down from the powwow and then go be a factor in the fight. But the fight was already kind of decided at that point. Ducky holds the Phantom, and I just don't know what he's waiting for. You know, River's Rebuke is the only ability that you're worried about with that Phantom Veil, right? And it's not like he's upgraded it either.
Yeah,
he's
so you
not
don't have the
saving
mitigations.
Yeah, so he's not saving it for mitigations for Taiko drums. There's no point in sitting underneath that River's Rebuke and letting Raffer get poked out, letting Raffer use his ultimate. It's just a lack of urgency from the Valkyries. I felt it on their Fire Giant that they weren't, you know, super locked in on we are grouping right away, we are fighting right away, we are trying to push this lead right away. And a part of it is because Zero's died, but even right there, I feel like they're kind of unsure of what to do in some of these moments, and it's shining through a bit.
Well, 2 tier 2s and a right-hand Phoenix. The Leviathans are feeling really good about their Fire Giant as of right now. They burned it down pretty quickly, 30 minutes into this game. And they're leading 12-10 in terms of the kills. They're going to pick up a Primal Fury to boot and start pushing this gold lead to about the 8,000 mark. As they retreat, clear up their jungle, probably spend some of this hard-earned gold, and then reassess where they're going to get aggressive. This is typically where we start to see that left-hand push. Raffer had just done some due diligence, pushed up the minions, and left. Mid is clashing right around the middle area of the map. So ultimately, it's going to be a little bit of work for the Leviathans to get to wherever they want.
And Tiamat is very good in these moments, where it makes it very easy to not stress too much about what waves are coming your way. You can just plop down some minions and have them push for you. That's what Zeros is doing on the right side here, trying to make sure that these fire waves don't end up being a little bit too much to handle. That's going to delay that fire wave pretty significantly, and Raffer, as always, whenever he's playing this Athena, always loves a split push on it, and it makes sense. I mean, you can join the fight whenever needed, so this fire wave shouldn't be an issue on this right-hand side, and the mid waves as well. I mean, Zeros has, what, full CDR if he's got a power pot, so he can drop those serpents pretty quickly.
Not too worried about it, although worried enough. They're not trying to put up a fight around the tier 2. Left side goes down. It's another 1,500 gold in the pocket for the Leviathans. Panatom has been, and kind of surprised me, but he was the tank for him. Rivers are beat on the left-hand side. Maybe Leviathans just ult out of the Tiamat as that tornado chases down Shinto and tries to get some damage in there. But it is the siege on the left-hand Phoenix right now for the Leviathans where they're trying to find their aggression.
Yeah, I think that overall this Tiamat should be very strong. I mean, losing that Phantom does hurt you on the re-engage, but Rongyu's ultimate being down also helps.
Well, they're going to reassess their way in here. Rongyu, like you said, no longer having that Riptide or River's Rebuke is going to be big. Lao thrown out. It's going to get beadsed by Johnny, not by Ducky. Ducky is going to be able to stay alive with a lot of his health bar, but Johnny's incredibly low, and that's going to be the engage from Panatom and Yarkor. They get the kill there. Left side Phoenix goes down, and Rongyu finds Imolito. Zeros is crawling back to the base, hoping to get some healing. Same thing for Raffer, and Ducky's just trying to root the rest of the Leviathans and lock them down. Zapman's low health, though. They're going to fall back. The sustain necessary.
Divide and conquer for the Leviathans. They win their 3v3 in left, they win their 2v2 in mid, and they're going to win game 1 without some crazy
Yeah, now
heroics.
they have so many minions running in with them, but it's a 3v5. Let's see what the Valkyries have to offer. Ducky is gone. Raffer forced to run back to the fountain. Zero's not even leaving the fountain right now, but that's not stopping the Leviathan. Panatom runs into the enemy fountain, might end up costing him and will end up costing him his life, but they kill off Zeros, they kill off the Titan, and like you said, they take game number 1.
Look, I mean, the Valkyries did a lot of stuff really well in that game, and I think that the Valkyries drafted well earlier this week. They drafted well again today. That's a good sign because I think that has been a struggle for them this entire year. Starting to find their identity a little bit. It takes time, man. I mean, it's hard against really good teams. You know, you think, okay, we've got a Fire Giant, that we should be able to end the game, but teams are really good at fighting up against Fire Giant teams with leads, and if you aren't practiced in those moments and you aren't used to being ahead there, you don't maximize your percentage points, and then they're able to punish you for it. So a good showing from the Valkyries, but I think we see that lack of experience from being in those positions really come past.
And I will still give them credit, though. Taking the Leviathans to 30 minutes, that's a
100%.
huge deal for them because they haven't done anything like that all year. A great performance for them, but the Leviathans take game number 1. We'll be right back to break it down.
Welcome back, SMITE fans. If you want to get your hands on some of that sweet merch showcased in that video, you can go to the link that was shown at the end of the video. Well, don't worry, we'll see it for you one more time. Shop.smiteproleague.com. You can get all kinds of team advertised material there. You can get jerseys, you can get t-shirts, you can get hoodies, ball caps, whatever you want. And with these two teams specifically, it's in the Valkyries and Leviathans, probably two of the coolest specialty items there, the hooded blanket from the Leviathans and the onesie from the Valkyries, both really nice pieces of merch. You can get that and more all at shop.smiteproleague.com. Thanks to Insight Apparel for being our sponsor for the merchandise. Game number one, Valkyries looked really strong to start. This is probably one of the better Valkyrie starts we've seen in recent times for them. Maybe I won't say maybe best all season, but this is a nice start out for them. But after that Fire Giant falls down, Mifflin, they don't really get a whole lot off. And Atlantis Leviathans, they show them what the late game looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concerns that we had originally during picks and bans. We knew that the Valkyries, with the composition that they had, should be able to establish a lead throughout the early game, and they were capable of doing so. They execute on that incredibly well. They utilize it to put themselves in a position in the late game where they could go towards the Fire Giant. But that said, I mean, Agra said it perfectly. on the cast, man. These SPL teams have become so adept at defending inside of the Phoenixes, inside of the Tier 2s. They've become so good at dealing with Fire Giant sieges that with this late game composition from the Valkyries kind of fell off. And despite having the lead that they had established themselves, I would say that it likely wasn't a quick enough pace to really utilize this composition. So the Valkyries come into this match with an identity. They say, we want to play the early game, we want to play it well, and then we want to just kind of run them over from there. And they kind of accomplished steps 1 through 3. It was just 4 through 5 that they were kind of struggling with.
The Leviathans, they had a good start out for it to try and fight back. The Shimoju worked really well for them. That River's Rebuke and Valkyries, they had an answer to start. They got a Phantom Veil as an immediate relic from solo laner Ducky, and he made good use of it. The River's Rebuke was getting almost little to no value in some of those later fights, but that one final fight around the Fire Giant, both the tanks got caught in the middle of it, and Ducky elected not to use the Phantom. It separated the entire team fight out, and the Leviathans were just able to completely pick them off, and then later run it down towards the end of the game. Leviathans with a big win, 5 kills for Panatom, 5 and 1 for Shinto. Zapman, a bit of an early struggle. I think he's sitting probably 0-2, maybe even at 1-3 part, able to bring himself up to an even slash line to close it.
Yeah, the Leviathans do a really good job that entire game playing from behind. Legitimately, it is draining to play from behind as long as they did, but that's the Zapman passive, right? You take him to 30 minutes and you're at a lead. You're exactly where he wants you. You trigger his trap card, he boosts the mentally, boosts the morale of his squad, and the Leviathans clean it up in pretty nice fashion about 34 minutes in.
Shinto and Zapman coming out with top damage, 34,000, 29,000 respectively for the two of them. And once again, Shinto just performing exceptionally well on this Raijin. And we talked about in game number 1's picks and bans. If everything else is available, if the Tiamat gets grabbed and you go down the ban column, if he can get his hands on the Raijin, he can just perform with this god no matter the circumstance.
And Shinto should not be allowed to have a slash line like that, by the way. Despite the Valkyries controlling the early game, I say they play around Shinto. They didn't play against Shinto. I mean, there's no reason the Valkyries should have been as ahead as they were throughout the first 20 or so minutes of this one, and Shinto still ends the game at 5-1. That Raijin was a problem, and it needs to be addressed in game 2.
Maybe they make adjustments, maybe they ban it, maybe they pick it for himself. Zeros has been known to play Raijin quite often in his career throughout SMITE, so maybe that's an option they look towards, and maybe even Leviathans ban away the Tiamat to try and put something a little bit less comfortable for Zeros, put him on something a little bit maybe lower down the charts, because he was still able to make a decent impact towards the early game. It just, a lot of it came down to those late game skirmishes where the Valkyries started getting separated in fights, the River's Rebuke coming out big. Maybe also a Yamoji ban, you know, maybe don't let Rongyu and Shinto get 2 of their top gods for picks and bans.
We'll see. There's adjustments to be made. I still want to give some value to what the Valhalla Valkyries are bringing. Again, I know that it's something that we say week in and week out. These guys look improved. They're looking better than last week. It feels like they're trying to find their identity. But this may have been one of the first times where I felt like they brought a composition that had a clear plan, and then they executed on that plan. It's just cleaning up that late game phase that presumably, or that I would say, was their strength originally. Coming into Season 8, if they could make it into the late game, that was the Valkyries at their best, and we've seen throughout the phases that they've made a clear adjustment to try and clean up that early game, and maybe have gone a little bit too far in that direction now. The early game looking much stronger than the late game phase. If they could find a middle ground, these guys will be a threat, but it is a maybe at this point. I mean, Agro said it takes a long time to find that synergy, to find that identity. We're in the 9th month of 2021, and it's almost over. World's right around the corner. If you're a Valks fan, you're hoping they're able to clean it up soon.
First bans on the board, Kepri and Erlong Shen by the Leviathans. The Valkyries take hell off the board here. And the Erlong Shen, a little bit of respect thrown towards Johnny, had a great performance on it in game number 1. Leviathans not wanting to give him a repeat performance, maybe put him on something a little bit less comfortable, maybe try and push him a little bit further down the jungle pool, but there are still quite a few junglers out there that Johnny's capable of playing. He can always make his throwbacks towards even gods like Loki and Apollo if he wants to. I mean, he has those as options.
You want to see the Apollo?
It's always fun to watch. I'll put
so you want to see the Apollo?
I would rather see maybe the Gilgamesh or the Osiris.
Binary scale, yes or no, Apollo?
No, if Osiris, Gilgamesh, Loki, and
they're
probably 4 or 5 other gods maybe up there. It's always fun to watch the Apollo, but he hasn't found a whole lot of success with it just yet.
Yeah, last time it was 1-11.
It'd be Terra and Ardeo, the final 2 bans here. One more available for the Valkyries.
Yeah, I think that getting Johnny on an early game aggressive pick is just the best look for the Valkyries, man. I mean, he can absolutely dominate the early game. We've seen his Erlang Shen, we've seen the Osiris. We know that he's capable of playing those guys at an incredibly high level. And I think that legitimately this next 8.9 patch, once it drops, is going to benefit Johnny maybe more so than a lot of these other junglers. He really did have a great performance in the SCC on these hyper carry late game assassins, and that's something that should become viable very soon here. But as of right now, Warriors are still the meta out of the jungle, and maybe the Valkyries keep their eyes that way. They will round out their last ban with Yamoja taken off the table, so that's something you had called for a little bit early on. Don't let the Leviathans get that priority pick. But what does that leave available? Cerberus, and it gets snapped up.
Yeah, a nice bit of flexibility with the God. We've seen it go either support or solo. More often, we see it come out of the solo lane. Hardcore been one of the big pilots for this team on that God, with the Emoji banned away and with few other Guardians thrown in the mix between the Terra, the Khepri, RGO, and Umoja, and now even a Cerberus. Valkyries may have to dig a little bit further into that God pool. We did see Athena for Raffer last time. Looked good early on in the game, able to get some really nice confounds, get some good setup for his hunters. But we're talking about priority picks left open. Both Odin and Osiris were left available, and the Valkyries are going to take both of those for their first picks.
Yeah, the Valks saying that they value the Osiris over the Tiamat right there. I mean, with Erlang Shen banned out, it means that those are the two best hunters, or assassins rather, junglers in the game right now. So Osiris removed from the table. What does that leave available for the Leviathans? Well, they can go back to the Gilgamesh. They could pick up the Tiamat here if they so choose, and they will. So the top three from the Leviathans is it's looking pretty mighty. I mean, Gilgamesh, Tiamat, Cerberus. It almost reads like a horror story a little bit, right? That is a scary composition immediately. But the Valks on the other end have got themselves an incredibly strong composition in their own right. Odin legitimately is one of the few gods in SMITE that enforces that the enemy team has to address the game differently. Ring of Spears is that versatile and aggressive of a tool that the Leviathans legitimately have to think about that every single time they start a fight. They start a Gold Fury, a Fire Giant, a Pyromancer. The only thing that's going on in the comms is Odin ring up? Where is Odin? How is he playing? Where is he? Who's he going for? Who are we targeting? Do we have Phantom available? And not many gods can generate that level of threat in their own right. So I do immediately like what the Valks have brought. Osiris is going to bridge them into the late game incredibly well. Raijin is going to be able to utilize that aggression from Osiris and also scale into the late game. This is crazy, man. These guys are swinging for the fences.
Speaking of crazy and swinging here, 4 hunters banned away in the second phase between Heimdall, Ram, Artemis, and Jing Wei all taken off the board. That means the Izanami is the next guy that the Valkyries are hovering here, and they will be sure to lock that one in. So now option goes back over towards Leviathans. They still need their hunter. They still need most likely their support, with the Cerberus still being a little bit flexible between them. And really one of the big questions you have to think is, what Guardian, if you're going for support here, what do you take because you're going up against Odin? Now you need something to be able to get out of that cage. What are the options that the Leviathans have?
I mean, I'm not really too concerned with my support being able to deal with the cage. I think you're more so concerned about what you're able to bring to the team fight, and in that regard, I think Terra probably fits this composition pretty well here for the Leviathans if they so choose, but we know that Serket is something that Rong Yu likes to go towards, and if he is worried about that Odin cage and he does feel like legitimately AFK in the middle lane, crouched down, invisible, he'll do it for over a minute throughout the duration of the game, and it will be Serket locked in. But maybe a little bit of a flavor pick to round out the draft, Ho Yi taken for Zapman.
A lot of gods with their leaps taken away, so it does just leave Ho Yi with the dive bomb, someone who can get out of the cage and someone who can maybe even punish that cage. You drop a big circle on, jump out, and immediately drop your own circle right in the center. Say, you know what? You want to fight us in here? We'll fight you right back. That 9 Suns that drop down can deal a hefty chunk of damage, but the Valkyries go with a 10th pick Kuzenbo to round their draft out here, giving that one over to Raffer.
Yeah, it is likely headed to Raffer. He loves that Kuzenbo. We actually talked about it in the game 1 P's and B's. He loves being able to play that disruption factor inside of the back line. Just pop your 2, stand in front of Tiamat and say, hey, shoot your abilities, and you're going to shoot yourself in the foot here. But that means that this Odin is going to take a little bit longer to get involved inside of these these team fights. Odin out of the soul lane generally doesn't even get a chance to rotate out into these big, impactful 3v3s, 4v4s in mid until post level 12, which means that Phantoms are likely going to be available to the other side for the Leviathans. Not that they necessarily really need them, as the majority, or if not all of them, can deal with that Ring of Spears just by using a leap inside of the kit. But the Valkyries, again, bring a composition that fits the style that they've been electing to go for. It is early game aggression all the way across the board. Osiris dominates, Raijin, Izanami all generate a ton of pressure. Odin can be left alone on an island, and Kuzenbo is a kill-centric god out of that support role. So the Leviathans are looking to do exactly what they did in game 1, withstand the storm early and then take the team fights in the late.
Rongyu back with the Circuit. We've seen him play it quite a few times, and you highlighted one of his favorite tactics is sit in the mid lane, stealth, soak up as much farm as he can get from those mid lane minions, and you just hope that nobody saw you go stealth, and then that mid laner walks up to try and go for the clear, and you just get a nice, easy pick for yourself. A nice, well, you hope it's an easy pick. If they don't have their beads, it might be a little bit easier of a pick, and going up against a Raijin, pretty mobile god to try and get away from that.
Yeah, he is mobile, but Raijin has to step up legitimately into melee range on the wave, right, to clear it out. He has to walk into his melee so he can hit the archers with that first ability. So that opens up the door for this Circuit to find those engages. And it doesn't matter if you can thunderclap away. Like, ambush is one of the longest leaps in the game, full stop. It just goes further than the majority. I mean, you've got the dash as well from Circuit. As long as this Circuit is landing the taunt or the ultimate, that's all the setup you need to make sure this Tiamat can find damage.
Curious how this Ho Yi will play out for this team as well. Not having purification beads in the kit means he's going to have, or not having CC immunity in the kit,
same thing,
means he's still going to need to pick up this purification beads. Pretty much every hunter, no matter what's always going to need it, but it means he's not going to have that same level of safety factor to try and get away from some of these hard-hitting CCs. You can't pop Tusky and then be able to walk away from a CC if you predict it a little bit sooner. It's all going to come down to having your escape with that dive bomb, being able to try and fight back with that ricochet in the mark of Golden Crow, and even putting the Suns out there. It's going to be a lot of fun watching this dual lane pan out between these two teams. We won't have to wait any longer. Game number 2 between the Leviathans and the Valkyries starts right now.
That's right, kicking it off, the 1-0 lead here for the Leviathans. And Aggro, I thought that Athena Heimdall, at least when Raffer and Emilito were playing them, they looked like they wanted to be aggressive. I don't think you get much more aggressive than Kuzenbo Izanami, though.
No, that's a lot of kill pressure. It's a lot of lane clear. You certainly got a lot of tools whenever you go with a draft like this, especially in your dual lane. But going back to this war flag for Raffer, I think that Kuzenbo procs it much more easily than someone like Athena can. Like it a little bit more on that selection than the Athena, and they should be having some pretty easy pressure between the war flag and the Izanami.
I completely blanked on now seeing a warrior over there in the solo lane once again. Ducky piloting the Odin, although it makes sense. We have talked at length about how much we love Odin more in the solo lane or support role than we do in the jungle. So hopefully it'll stay that way. We'll see what he's able to provide here. As this is Osiris. Now, Osiris has been in this very interesting position because he's had some great performances. And all of those happened not at the Phase 2 playoffs. Phase 2 playoffs was a terrible time to be an Osiris player. We'll see if he's able to do anything here. Because he's going up against this Gilgamesh. Panatom already showcasing how aggressive he wants to play.
But he lost both mid camps there. A nice little secure by Johnny on the back end of that. So doesn't go Panatom's way even using the blink. But I think that the Valkyries have come in with a very strong early game-centric draft. Again, I think that they're a little bit more cohesive with their draft this time around. The early Odin pick always going to let you get counterpicked a little bit, and the Leviathans do draft 5 leaps, so not going to get as much value out of that Ring of Spears as you would hope to.
Well, wrong. You blinks forward, gets pushed away by Raffer here. And this is what I was curious about when I came into this lane and just looking at it, was how much would be the Izanami, the Kuzenbo, and how much is going to be the Circuit, because Wrong Yu should try to balance out and will be balancing out a little bit of that aggression. It's going to be a push away that Raffer is going for, trying to keep him as safe as possible, and they've got the minion advantage as well.
Look, as long as Wrong Yu's getting beads when he blinks in like that, it's a good situation to use it. He finds, again, these multi-man Cobra's Kisses, so good with that ability. I'm sure Zeros, if they've watched any Rongyu Circuit, they know the scouting report that Rongyu is willing to stealth in mid as long as he needs to. In order
was it the other day? It was a minute and a half?
Well over a minute for him to sit there. Yeah, he is not on a clock when it comes down.
Now, see, that's how you know, like, I have enough ADD in my bones that there's no way you could give me Circuit and I could sit in lane long enough to make sure that I was there for a full minute. But hey, gotta give props to Leviathans. The amount of focus they were able to attribute there, and getting aggressive now in the duo lane again. But again, you had mentioned the beads being down. I'm waiting patiently. I'm sure Rongyu is as well. Won't hit 5 before those 85 seconds are up. But I can imagine he wants it more than anything to just be able to grab Immel and throw him to the Sharks.
That should be an easy kill if it happens, but looks like it's going to be a purple buff invade attempt, and maybe successful there for Rongyu.
Oh,
What a
they don't have any
bounce!
mana, and that's going to be the jump in. Zapman just cleans him up. Zapman with the damage. Nobody could have expected that. Immel had no time to think about it. What a first blood for the Leviathans.
Yeah, just like Zap drew it up. You know, he's sitting there doing his calculations. In reality, all you players, I don't care what anyone says, they just look at what feels like it could work and just toss it out
There's
there.
a wall.
Yeah, there's a
I can
wall.
bounce off that.
I'm going to aim on that. And it ends up double tapping Emilito in order to find that kill. Unbelievable bounce there from Zap. And then to get the purple buff itself on top of that is just the icing on the cake.
I mean, and like, again, one of those rare perfect angles. It clips the wall. It didn't even look like he was aiming for the bounce. He just happened to get it as it bounced around and smacked into Emilito. Great amounts of damage, something that you get to see in Hu Yi. Maybe not as often as I'd like to see. I want more of that.
Yeah.
Zapman's happily going to be able to provide a good first blood for them. Now it's time for the shoe to be on the other foot. The red team, Valkyries, getting aggressive towards the purple buff. Forced to disengage. Panatom with a blink drop kick gets the stun. Rapper does not have the mana to work with. Panatom makes a successful gank and kills off the support.
Just not a great decision there from the Valkyries to go for that invade. I think that we've seen so many teams get punished for these early purple invades where junglers are just willing to forego some of their right side jungle and head on over to this left side in order to defend against these invades. That's exactly what Panatom does, allows Shinto to get the farm, which is what he wants to do anyways, and is just there. And unless you've got really good ward coverage or a mid laner knows exactly where that jungler is, it's just not worth the risk.
Well, we had mentioned level 5. I think Rongyu trying to bait out some beads here. He does have that ult available. Immel does have that dash, so it is always a nice way to get away and disengage. And I'm also going to throw this out there. I don't think I've ever seen a solo laner as nonplussed by a gank as Yarkor was.
No.
Turns his eyes, sees Johnny, he's just kind of like, hey man,
All right.
I'm a dog.
Yeah.
What's up? I'm going to go farm, have fun. And just left it to, well, just exist in that world. What was a pretty substantial lead for the Valkyries early on last game is now actually a pretty monumental lead for the Leviathans. They're starting to push on 2,000 gold. We're 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it's kind of a tale of 2 games so far for the Valkyries, where they had a lot of things go well at the beginning of game 1. This game has been not exactly what they were looking for when it comes to some of these starts, but they're not behind the 8 ball or anything like that. I mean, Johnny has a slight level lead over Panatom. Emilito, as long as he can survive this Ichabal versus Hunter's Bow power spike for Zapman and not die there, feels pretty okay.
Shinto gets pushed in the mid lane, but Tiamat manages to jump out of there. Rongyu's here, and they're trying to help out with the knockup. The Taiko drums just short there. Johnny will be able to secure the kill. Zeros has no mana. Panatom is joining the fight. There is a kiss from the Circuit, tossing Johnny back to the fray. Panatom makes the leap, but goes the wrong direction. Tries to cut off a path that isn't happening for Johnny, but he's got no Lord of the Afterlife, and he's going to get taken down. Ducky jumps into the fight, but he's only going to be able to get a little bit of damage before he has to back off.
It's a 1-for-1, but you killed Shinto, and that's good enough for me. Shinto a little bit either greedy with the relics or didn't have it, didn't notice if his beads were down whenever he got sumo slammed by Raffer, but Raffer with a really nice angle in, finds a good flank, pushes Shinto back, and makes that an easy kill for the Valkyries. Puts him on the board and gets some momentum going for them at the very least.
And we saw this last time. Zapman takes the aggression they had in lane, although Zapman was getting bullied a little bit. They turn it into a greater Scorpion. Panatom as well being very, very adamant where he is in the jungle. Blink available. And we saw a good Blink drop kick earlier when he was able to help kill off Raffer. Maybe something that could happen here. Raffer, speaking of which, no mana, no health. And they're going to walk in. Yarkor just takes the blue buff out from under him. Doesn't care about the blood or the kill potential. Just takes what he needs, backs away.
He's so big right now that he could probably take on both Ducky and Raffer in the fight, though, because he's got Tyrant.
Zapman might not be that big, though. He needs to worry a little more. He drops the Suns, but it doesn't save his life. Johnny picks up that kill. Rongyu Well, just has to patiently wait now for his hunter to respawn.
Really nice play from Johnny. Not a lot of great ward coverage on that side of the map from the Leviathans. It's all defensive more than offensive, and Zap just trying to play a little bit aggressively with his lead, as you would expect, but a good rotation from Johnny punishes him.
Well, it's been this back and forth so far between the two teams. The gold lead is really what is catching my attention as of right now. The Leviathans have been a lot more controlling in terms of their farm than what we've seen out of the Valkyries. Despite the fact that it's only 3-2, they are starting to push up on a little over 2K gold, and at 7 minutes, broaching 8 minutes pretty fast. That is a substantial lead. I mean, that is a massive amount of gold to be able to control, and it's going to help. I mean, you had mentioned the power spike in duo, but it's going to be power spikes pretty much across the board with this amount.
Certainly, to be down 2,300 at 8 minutes is further down than you would typically see a lead develop. But even though it's a pretty big lead and a pretty good experience lead for the Leviathans as well, at least it's not all in one lane. I mean, Ducky's suffering the most so far, down about a level and a half to Yarkor, but it's not like, you know, the jungler is down 3 levels or your ADC is down 2 full levels.
Well, we'll see what they can get done. Beads forced out by Zeros. Thunder Crash away. Raffer goes in with the ult and gets some knockups. Did not seem to affect Shinto in the least. In fact, they're going to get aggressive. They're going to get the dropkick. Panatom picks up the kill onto the support, and they aren't done. A good two-man taunt from Rong Yu. Locks him up. Zeros. Thunder crashes away, and now Rong Yu's in trouble. Johnny maybe chasing a little too deep, though. Needs the hit, and is able to get it with the sickle strike. Now it's the lockdown. Good stun from Panatom. Jumps away. Great knock-up from Shinto, but no mana. The sun's dropped by Zapman. Seems like this one's going to just fizzle out.
So it's support first support at the end of the day. No one else ends up falling, and that actually favors Leviathans because Raffer had more golden experience than, or no, at least more experience, not more gold. In fact, it's a pretty big gold lead for Rongyu in the support role. I think he's up like 800 gold right now on Raffer. So ends up being pretty even overall, I would say. Really good re-initiation by Rongyu, but bit of a shame that Zeros, if you're a Leviathans fan, that is, a bit of a shame that Zeros doesn't end up falling off the back of that double Cobra's Kiss, but Zeros really had that good positioning in that fight. Liked his patience with the taiko drums as well.
Everything falling just short of where they needed it to. Might not happen here. Zapman forced to jump away. Not often you get to talk about this. The Kuzenbo Nene tech and the Huyi bounce tech, both operating in the same part of the jungle here. Of course, definitely helped out Zapman a lot more earlier than anything that we've seen out of maybe any Nene in the history of Kuzenbo. But either way, Fire Giant just now spawns up, hit 10 minutes. Pyromancer's available. Gold Fury has been sitting here. And that's what I think is going to be the next big drop for these teams. Wrong you. Well, we talked about his patience. He's going to be going in onto Himmelito. He gets the ult, tosses him back, is waiting patiently for the dash. Good knockups from Raffer. Keeps him just away that he's not able to capitalize on it and try to kill off the carry.
No beads usage by Himmelito. Trades his ult in case Rongyu was going to try and leap on top of him. Needed that auto attack in order to proc the Circuit passive. Still don't think it would have been enough damage, but good patience there.
Oh my god! Zapman with a great ricochet! Bounces off the wall, off the tower, and right into a waiting and patient Himmelito. You couldn't have planned it better.
Bruh. What was that,
He's
man?
just making a montage.
What was that? Himmelito's got the homing beacon. Check your pockets, bro. Make sure that Zap didn't slip it onto him. That is unreal. Poor Emil, bro. He gets triple bounce twice off these just total random shots from Zapman. Unreal.
I mean, he plays pool perfectly there. Ducky getting aggressive. Johnny as well. The ones fighting the cage, maybe locking Ducky in there with them. Panatom jumps over the wall, kills off the solo laner. Johnny and Zeros are watching a couple of damage thrown back, but I see Wrong You, and he is the king of two-man taunts. Misses it this time, and that is going to end up saving him. If they force the ult out of Zeros, he's going to fall back under that tier 2. And we're going to take a look one more time at Zapman's perspective for this one. There's no way you could plan this shot better.
Bro, this is crazy. Off the wall, off the tower, to Himmelito, and Johnny's like, hey guys, never mind, I didn't see it. You know, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, Shinto in a little bit of trouble in mid lane. Knockups good from Raffer. Leap over the wall, followed by Johnny. He's going to have a nice little spin, some damage turnaround, and the team is here to save him. He runs out of here. Lord of the Afterlife stops the healing for a little bit, but Shinto is fine. Raffer is now the one isolated. Johnny half health as well, and there's going to be a good Stygian Torment, pulls him right back in, and Panatom picks up the kill there. Rong Yu chasing down Johnny, and we know where the mobility is here. Rong Yu should be able to catch up. A blink used, taunt used, dash used, and he gets the kill.
Beautiful setup there from Yarkor, brings both frontliners back, and they think they've got Shinto dead to rights. He's got no beads, he's got no jump. Surely we're going to be able to kill him now. But Shinto, just nice and patient, uses the ultimate at the right time, gets those mitigations back up. And the dive just not good enough from the Valkyries. Great turnaround there.
And I gotta say, this is something, you know, it's easy to forget about Tiamat. And I noticed it earlier, but they're doing it again here. The fact that you can pick up a second buff is such a huge deal for them, because now they've been giving Rong Yu the red. They've done it twice, once with the enhanced, once now with the secondary. And it's just such a little amount of power there for Rong Yu. But for the Circuit and the way he's playing it, it's perfect.
Yep, it's been perfect. Just get that extra little bit of threat. Maybe that red buff catches someone off guard. I mean, there is a scaling component now to the ultimate for Circuit. Not a lot of scaling, and red buff also doesn't give you that much power because it's percent based, so you're not getting that much on the Circuit, but you're still getting at least a little bit, which is better than green buff, I would say.
It feels a little bit better. Rong Yu, again, lurking just around the walls this time around in mid instead of in the middle, as we saw the other day. Shinto's over here, Panatom's over here. They seem to want a red buff. And they're looking to get aggressive. Raffer's off on the side, forces the dash. The sumo slam is down, so that's the CC. Zeros is looking to jump forward. Rong Yu still hanging around in the red buff. It's going to be the engage. He gets the taunt, he gets the dash, but it's only a little bit. A good stun from Yarkor, as well as the ult gets dropped, forces out the Taiko drums. The cage is dropped by Ducky as he joins the fray. Yarkor is low, but they walk on out of this one. The damage seems to be flying the other way. Raffer is isolated, Johnny is isolated, and they just have to find the kill. One more hit from Zap is all it's going to take. They kill off the jungler.
Johnny just overextends, looking for that finishing blow onto Yarkor, and Yarkor just too tanky between that Bam Shroud and the Tyranno.
Well, Ducky gets the stun onto Panatom. Some good damage thrown out by Shinto. Even better for the lockdown. One more hit is all it will take. The stun Aegis out. And that's Rong Yu diving a Phoenix right now. Doesn't get the kill. Doesn't matter. Ducky died under the tier 2. They still get something for their efforts.
Great dive there, attempt by the Leviathans. The double stun from Shinto just does so much damage. I couldn't believe that Emilito didn't use speeds. Kind of just stood there and ate the damage, but had to Aegis on the back end, still loses one relic, but only one, keeps speeds and survives. The Leviathan's just doing whatever they want on the map right now, man. I mean, Yarkor is unanswerable on this Cerberus. Level 15, he's 3 levels up on Ducky, who just has not been able to find some effective cages quite yet. Panatom 5-0, Zap 4-1. More of this too.
Emilito happy that he had the beads this time around.
Yep.
And the stun's not going to connect from Zapman. Rong Yu doesn't get the taunt.
How
necessary.
Unlucky is Zapman, Gora, that bounce doesn't find? So unlucky.
Well, Rong Yu, wow, maybe taunting fate here starts to back. Zeros has joined up with Emilito. Left-hand side, 15 minutes in, 15 and a half. And the Leviathans lead 10 kills to 3. And after that Gold Fury, they're sitting around 9,000 gold, just a little shy of hitting that 9K mark. A very substantial lead this early on.
Yeah, this one very different from game 1, and this is definitely not what the Valks fans were looking for. A bit of a regression, I would say, from how well they played the early game last game. Though I think that a lot of credit deserves to go to the Leviathans on how much more cleanly they played it. Yeah. I think their adjustments and picks and bans ended up helping out a lot when it came down to the draft. And then their execution on the field has obviously been unmatched, particularly from Zap on the Sogi.
Well, there's a blink, there's a stun. Zeros is locked down. Thundercrash should be available. He's not going to get the chance to get it off. Doesn't have the beads, and that CC locks him down enough. 40 seconds now without a mid laner, and the Valkyries are forced to run away. Emilito gets pressured out over here on left. And I think the Leviathans are starting to sniff out some tier 2s, at least a red buff.
I mean, no relics there for Emilito. Relic's going to be down for a little bit for Zeros, at least as Aegis. I don't know where you really step up because the CC Leviathans have is insane.
Well, Panatom did not let Imolito rest. Instead, sticks around over in the left side jungle, finds the carry, and now they have a 3v5 to try and fight. Panatom gets locked. Cage leaps on out of there. Wrong Yu is following up behind him. The cavalry has come to save Panatom, though, and trying to lock down Ducky, and they're going to do it successfully. Panatom even gets the credit for the kill, the turnaround. Johnny goes deep, and Johnny should be able to get those one. No, but the leap from Panatom's good. Not good enough. Johnny still manages to find the kill, but not without losing Raffer in the process. Now he is running for his life. Zeros is respawned, but he's way in the middle of nowhere. The Leviathans get themselves another kill, and they're happy with this. Essentially, deicide.
Listen, hey, Johnny gets the shutdown onto Panatom, worth the dive. Oh, Zeros, buddy. I don't know if you're allowed to be here, but to be fair, nice ultimate to get himself CC immunity. Needed it.
And perfectly in time. Let's see if he can actually get away, though. Still has the beads, forced to use those as well. He does have the Thunder Crash.
Okay.
And hey, for once, the Phoenix seems to be enough to stop the Leviathans. Didn't stop Wrong Yu earlier, but this one is just threatening. Tier 2 in mid for the Valkyries. Almost, but not quite toppled. All 6 towers on the other side still standing. It's Shinto along with Yarkor standing in the back Harpies on the right-hand side of the map. Valkyries trying to figure out and get their feet back under them.
Yeah, I think the Leviathans are just trying to see how many kills they can get away with at this point, because they are throwing all caution to the wind, looking not so much at the objectives, but at the kills instead. And when you're kind of dominating to this level, that does not surprise me too much.
Yeah, depending on how heavy Zapman's shot calling is, it's probably the hype from both of those bounces earlier.
Yep.
Kind of manifesting itself into a game. A vastly, vastly different scenario for him. 7-1-4 right now. Panatom has been a part of 11 of the 15 kills. 5-1-4. 9 out of 15 there for Zapman, with some of those being very remarkable shots. Johnny is rotated over to the duo lane. Imolito's here as well. Imolito gets chunked down by Shinto, but they are just playing and waiting for the bait. Zeros is going to join the fray, quickly turning this into a 3v2, and it's going to turn into a 1v3. Shinto is left all by himself. They do get the 1-for-1 trade. Imolito for Zap, but with Shinto getting locked down, Lord of the Afterlife use. Wrong Yu coming to save him, but not there in time. They lose the mid laner, but now it's time to turn it around. Johnny goes down. Zeros follows shortly thereafter, and the Leviathans still manage to make this favorable.
Look, they trade 2 for 3, but I like that play more for the Valkyries. I mean, how much gold is Imolito worth at this point? Like 4? He's level 16 Izanami that hasn't found a kill yet. The fact that you're able to get these kills on a Shinto and on the Zap, that should stop some of the bleeding for a little bit. The Leviathan should be limited in what they can do on the map. I mean, they still get a tier 2, but it's not like they're going to be able to get a whole lot more than that until these 2 respawn. I think that overall, that's favorable for the Valkyries. If they can keep trading 2 for 3, but those 2 are Shinto and Zapman, they should be in a pretty decent spot.
And you had mentioned it earlier, but like Shinto, level 19 as well, 3 levels up currently over Zeros at level 16. Absolutely worthwhile to kill him, let alone Zap, 2-level lead on what Imolito's been able to pick up, let alone the gold difference between the two. Kind of swapping some of their items down at the very bottom, but Zap has a chin size over Imol. And you can see where that damage has definitely been coming in handy, whereas I think it's a full tier 3 item picked up for Shinto versus what Zeros has been able to do.
Yeah.
And so really starting to signify where the differences are, much more worthwhile just to be a part of the kill for Zeros.
Exactly. He just getting those assists matters a lot. If he could have been the one to get the kill on a Shinto, that would have been really, really huge. But Johnny has gotten all 6 so far for the Valhalla Valkyries. That leaves them with a positive scoreline, at the very least, sitting at 6-5.
6-5-0. It's a rare day you get to see 0 in the assist column, at least 20 minutes in. Now the Oni Fury spawned up. Leviathans love to pick this one up. Everyone does. 20 minutes in, it's a very, very important Fury, and they seem to be uncontested as of right now. In fact, they've got 3 people waiting around it. Wrong Yu just patiently anticipating the Valkyries getting aggressive, but the rest of the team seems to be just fine at zoning them. There's 5 members of the Valkyries on the right-hand side of the jungle. Instead, that's a free Oni.
Looks like they're not even heading towards the Fire Giant. Instead, shading up mid.
And they're going to get aggressive. Wrong U jumps in, but the Taiko jumps come out. CC immunity there for Zeros. Wouldn't be enough, but not enough to save Johnny, who gets thrown right back into the fray. Emilito dies in the process as well, too. Quick bursts, and they're going to go ahead and tick on a third. Ducky goes down, a 5v3 as the Leviathans get aggressive. Right-hand Phoenix cannot be damaged right now, but that's not stopping Panatom from running right past it into the Titan room. Falls back and joins his team at the mid-Phoenix.
Guess about Leviathans were right. They didn't need a Fire Giant. They might be able to just end because they've got an Oni wave coming down the mid lane.
30 seconds without any of the other members for the Valkyries. 2v5. You had mentioned it, the Oni wave right here. But they feel low enough. They're not going to test it. Zeros, Raijin, we see what kind of damage output that can be. They're going to go ahead, pump the brakes, fall back from the Phoenix, successfully taking it down. And Fire Giant's the only thing left. Maybe they go to left to get the tier 2. That seems to be what the call is.
Yeah, make sure that this Oni wave gets this tier 2. Only going to need one person to stick around to hit it. Let Shinto back and buy his starter item upgrade and spend all that gold that they got. I mean, these team fights are just so one-sided because Leviathan, with this type of comp, when Serket support gets ahead, she's the same level as Emilito. She does almost as much damage as him and is infinitely tankier and has all this mobility. And when that starts to happen to you, when you're getting dove by a character like Serket support, and you can't actually threaten her, then it's going to be tough.
Fire Giant started up, not by the team you think though. Valkyries are the ones sitting on it. Yarkor is in the neighborhood, just watching him. He's gonna do whatever he can to strip this away or to fight him down. Shinto joins as well, and there's gonna be a lot of damage. Johnny jumps over the wall. Fire Giant still there and still low, and Leviathans are gonna be able to scoop that one up. Zero stunned against the wall and killed off before he can do anything. Now the Leviathans 5 strong, Fire Giant ready. They're gonna go ahead and knock down potentially the tier 2 on right. But Rongyu has something else in his mind. Goes for Ducky as they look to try and clam up to the right-hand Phoenix.
Yeah, they'll get him with ease as well. That should put a cap on set number 1 here today. And look, I'm sure there are a lot of question marks in chat about that FG call from the Valkyries. I've got no problem with it. You are less than half of 1% to win this game from that position. You've got to try and make something happen.
Oh no!
They tried, at the very least.
Oh, they walk into the Titan room, they kill off Raffer. One more for good measure. Get rid of Johnny and get rid of the Valkyries for today. Find themselves a 2-0. Much faster there in game number 2. The Leviathans find that 2-0.
I mean, I like the adjustments the Leviathans made. This is the Leviathans team that we expect. I mean, they were in the finals of the Phase 2 playoffs. They're playing like one of the best teams in the world. No real surprise. I think if you're a Valkyries fan, I think you've got to be very encouraged by Game 1. I thought they came in with a really cohesive game plan, executed it really well, and just 1 or 2 mistakes really cost them, and you can live with those. You know, it's better than these games where they just look like they had never had a chance. So still expected outcome from the Leviathans, but a good showing at least in Game 1 for the Bucks.
Good showing. Makes things a lot more interesting in Game 1. Game 2 definitely needs more work. Looking forward to how their matchups against some of these other teams now are going to be. Warriors, potentially Titans, depending on how today goes, Scarabs, things like that are going to be interesting in the future. But that does it for set number 1. We're going to break it down and move forward right after this.
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Hello and welcome back to the conclusion, I should say, of the Atlantis Leviathans and Valhalla Valkyries match. Atlantis Leviathans come out with a 2-0 victory in a little bit more convincing fashion here in game number 2. I'm J Mac Tucker. Joining me for this final death segment of this matchup is going to be Mifflin one final time, and looked a little bit more like the Leviathans that we're a little used to.
Yeah, the Leviathans, they didn't let the Valkyries get their feet under them this time around, did they? I mean, it felt like the Valkyries were not given the opportunity to utilize their early game composition because legitimately the Leviathans were in control from like minute 1. And when a team as good as the Leviathans get as good a start as that, I mean, it's going to be like, what, like a 24-minute game? It's going to be fast.
Yeah, at one point I looked up, I think it's 7 minutes in, it was already a 2,500 to 3K gold lead. Zapman with these triple bounces, disgusting. First one there, the bounce itself didn't get the kill, but the one under the tier 1 tower, that's not the easiest bounce to hit because you obviously have to take into account the fact that they're going to be moving, but he just throws it out there because he can. Slams for over 400 damage on the third bounce of it, and gets a nice little kill there for Zapman. Add that one to your highlight reel, Zap.
Yeah, I think he should, man. And that's actually pretty huge for the Leviathans to realize that they've got another flavor pick. Like, Zapman does not often go towards the Hou-Yi, but if he does so from now on, I'm probably okay with it. Leviathans fans probably okay with it. The Valkyries, not so much okay with it. I mean, just adding a little bit more versatility to your drafts always feels pretty good.
Never a bad thing to add some more spice to the mix for it. And it's going to be a big game here for Leviathans. They'll now lead up 2-0 as far as the standings are concerned. Puts them in a nice and comfortable position as we start moving later in towards this first half of the phase. Remember, it's a single round robin before going to group stages, and it's the number 1 and 2 seeds that get to determine where those group stages all line out between them. And getting a nice 2-0 start to begin phase number 3, got to be pretty happy for the Leviathans.
Yeah, Leviathans off to a roaring start, but they are one of the favorites throughout the regular season. These guys are very used to being near the top of the leaderboard, and not to mince words, the Valhalla Valkyries aren't. And that's it. End statement. Put a period on that.
And Valhalla Valkyries have been struggling as far as standings go. They've been struggling in game. Even that one, it did not look so hot for them in game number 2. A strong game 1, but when it comes through game 2, just did not pan out for them. But for the Atlantis Leviathans and for their mid laner Shinto, a nice and successful game. We're going to talk a little bit with Shinto for our post-game interview. Shinto, congratulations on your win. How does it feel getting to play 2 of probably not just the top picks, but 2 of your top picks in that mid lane?
I mean, it's always fun to like play fun gods and gods I'm confident of play. So yeah, really happy about it.
I'm sure your team's happy with you getting some nice comfort picks. You know, I asked Zapman earlier. He didn't seem too excited about the next patch coming through. How are you feeling about this 8.9 when it comes through? Maybe get some help out of the jungle.
Yeah, I'm not that much excited too because the junglers are gonna be so OP, I feel like. But hey, I'm pretty sure in mid you can play ADC abilities, so I'm happy for that.
Maybe see something a little bit different come out here in our next week of play. We'll be curious to see how that goes for it. Shinto, you got to go up against the Dragons for your next match. Any kind of prep work that your team is doing to get ready for them?
Like we all the team, we prep the entire week for the team. So yeah, we're gonna prep the entire week, play scrims, and yeah, be ready.
Well, Shinto, good luck in your next matches. Congratulations on your win today.
Thank you.
Always good to talk to Shinto. Always good to talk with the Leviathans and kind of pick their brains of where everything is lying out for them. And he's also not too excited for junglers, but is very curious that he said maybe we'll see some ADCs coming out of the mid-roll next patch.
Yeah, I was surprised that he was willing to let that one slide. That seems like something Oxy might have a conversation with him afterward, not letting these strats slip through in these interviews, man. But I tend to agree, looking at 8.9 and how it's rounding out. I mean, I wouldn't be overly surprised if we start to see maybe some Chiron, some Onher, some Neath in mid. And it's not just Shinto who should be excited about that. The Leviathans mid laner, Zero's actually a huge fan of playing Neath in mid, so maybe that's going to be a boon for them as well.
Could be a big one, and with junglers having a big impact, could be another little shining light there for the Valkyries. Even with them falling down 2-0 to Leviathans today, we still have one more set to go here in studio, live and in person. The Tartarus Titans and the Solar Scarabs will face off 4 teammates, now made enemies here on the battleground. Sparks should be flying with these 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, they've been hanging out in the studio for a little while now, and it seems like everybody's geared up, honed in. I mean, everybody is just locked in right now. I can't wait for this set.
Atlantis Leviathans sitting at the top of the standings, 2-0, but that's because, well, we've only had a few matches played so far. It's only week number 1, so these standings, you're going to see a lot of ties across the board. You're going to see a lot of even spread across 4. You're not going to see a whole lot of mix-ups as far as this first week goes, but as the weeks start pouring in, as we start getting more of those matchups and kind of start closing out the first half of the phase, we can be curious to see where all these teams start falling into place. Leviathans being at the top is a good start for them.
It is, and worth noting in this next set coming up, both teams actually undefeated here so far in the phase, so one of them's not going to be undefeated after this.
Was that a little shout out? Yeah, I mean, no, only one team has played and one team's won, so they haven't lost, and one team hasn't played, so they couldn't have lost. It's a good point there before Mifflin. Let's go ahead and take it to a quick break, and we'll be immediately back afterwards. That way we can get ready to get started with this Tartarus Titans and Solar Scarabs match.